Let's jump into Fluke for real. We got some players to talk about here, some good and some bad. Let's start out with Evan Ingram. I think this is for real. Wes, 32.5 fantasy points is a hell of a ceiling performance for him, but he's
Sure.
going to see these kind of looks going forward from Trevor Lawrence. This Jaguars team has lost a few. They don't have they don't have Christian Kirk. They're wanting to maintain their position in the playoffs. Just as you said, Wes, teams that need to make the playoffs in the NFL are the best fantasy players to have. Evan Ingram is one of them. So there you go.
No doubt.
32.5 from him is an exciting game.
I want to take just one brief moment to look at how Evan Ingram did last year. So let me pull this up.
I know later in the playoffs it was disappointing because I know he was almost my playoff hero last year. But he definitely showed up towards the end of the year.
Week 14 last year, 28.2 points.
Mm-hmm.
Check out this stat line. 11 catches, 15 targets, 162 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's standard, so let me change that to PPR because that's what we're using as well. So that was a 39.2 performance. And then 14 points right after. And then 18 points right after. And then championship weekend, 4 points.
Yeah, dude, he's that was the historical don't play your pass catchers against the Texans matchup where we were like,
that's when they were amazing.
Because it wasn't even that. It was just like, you can just kind of run all over the Texans. So we're just Travis Etienne and roll them out and we'll see what happens here. And so it was let's hope for better things. And I think we will see better things to come here. I think Trevor Lawrence needs to lock in.
That's for real.
He's going to continue going to Evan Ingram. So this is for real. Drake London felt like a bit of a coming out game for in my opinion. Unfortunately, Desmond Ridder is still his quarterback, so 29 points is not for real going forward here. But like I said, we're going to keep an eye on who his quarterback is next season because he's talented. He was drafted top 10 for a reason. He's a talented player, and maybe this is what we're looking at for the future here.
And they're all running for that NFC South title, and the Falcons believe they have a shot. Right. So they're going to keep going to the playmakers. I would say they keep going to the playmakers.
I hope.
Actually, that we had 3 first-round Falcons starting skill positions that had a solid week this week. So who knows? Yeah. Maybe something has changed over there for Arthur Smith, but I'm buying in on Drake London for playoffs. Let's do it.
It doesn't matter because I didn't make playoffs in our league, West, but I don't know if you saw the guy who had Drake London before this week dropped him. He was like, he hasn't really done anything this season. And I picked him up, and I was like, it's Drake London. I'd rather have him on my team than, like, Jalen Hyatt or something. Like, I'll just pick him up and just see. And there you go. Drake London will lead me through the consolation bracket, I guess.
What a loser.
We'll see what happens here. He's a 1 seed in our league, by the way. Anyways, Jake Browning, 27.7 fantasy points. Jake Browning, man. Now, listen, I will say, the Indianapolis Colts can't defend a running back screen, apparently, because he had like 2 of these plays where like Joe Mixon didn't score, but he had a screen that he broke for like 50 yards. And then Chase Brown, rookie running back out of Syracuse, takes one like 65 yards to the house. And so like half his yards and touchdowns came on like a couple screen passes.
Sure.
Only 4 targets for Jamar Chase, who that wasn't great. But I mean, I don't know. It's hard to argue like 2 weeks in a row inside like the top 4 or top 5 in fantasy quarterbacks, but I don't know if I'm bought in. I think this is still kind of fluky.
Well, here's what I'll say. 2 things. One, it's so funny because everyone will share memes about Jake Browning's success, and there's an idea of Jake Browning on the bench as Joe Burrow has his headset on, is talking and kind of help coach Jake Browning, and people are saying, "Oh, look, it's Drew Bledsoe and Tom Brady." Like, people have taken this idea so far, as if like this injury has just knocked out Burrow. Let's pump the brakes on Jake Browning. He's doing great this is exactly what you want in a backup. He's the backup for a good reason. But you take a look at the rest of the Bengals schedule here, this playoffs. They're playing the Vikings, then the Steelers, and then championship weekend against the Chiefs. So
the matchups are terrible.
I'm going to continue to say that Jake Browning is not going to be your playoff quarterback. You're not going to the championship with Browning, but we continue to see the rest of the Bengals offensive players succeed with Browning. So Browning's success for the Bengals team, again, I'm willing to say yes, but I'm not buying into Browning. I don't think he's going to have a rushing touchdown again. That seems improbable to me.
Yeah, I don't think he'll. I mean, so here's the thing: he has scored. Yeah, he scored 2 rushing touchdowns in each of his 2 games, but it's. I think, yeah, I'm just not sold. I'm not. I think I thought I was for a second when I saw his performance, and then I went back and looked at it, and I was like, I don't think that's actually what we think it was. So it's a great story. Good for him. I don't know if you saw the he had family up in a box in a suite at the Bengals stadium. I don't know if you saw this clip in his post game presser. He was asked about his family up in the box, and he was like, I did not buy that. That is not my suite. Joe was kind enough to give my family and friends some tickets because that was his suite, and he was kind enough to let them come out and watch me. So thanks to him. So great story. Good for Jake Browning, and maybe he'll maybe this is a start. Maybe he'll get an opportunity somewhere next season, but we'll have to see. As for now, I'm not rolling him into any fantasy lineups though. Right. David Njoku is somebody that's intriguing. I think 6 catches on 8 targets for 91 and 2 touchdowns, and 27.1 fantasy points, and I think that's because his new quarterback Joe Flacco was a 26 of 45 through 45 balls for 311 yards and 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. I know. But I think that's what the Browns are going to do, dude. I don't think they have much of a run game going, and I think they're just going to let Flacco sling it 40 times a game. I've got notes on this for a little later in the show, but he's got 89 pass attempts in his last 2 games. He has 44 passes. He threw 44 balls last week and 45 balls this week.
Jeez.
As far as Flacco, dude, I think this might be for real, and that's all I want to say on it because I will talk about him a little bit later, but for Njoku, I think he's going to benefit. I think they're going to be passing the ball a lot, and I think this is a good thing for Njoku. 8 targets. Amari Cooper saw a lot of targets as well. Like I think this is a good thing for Njoku owners.
Njoku was a top 10 tight end for you. You called him probably the most athletic tight end in the NFL. He is gifted. He is talented. There is something that has not worked with Deshaun Watson. We could have told you that earlier, Browns. But I do think that you can roll out Njoku as a playoff hero if he's still for some reason available. But let's go Brownies. Brownie the Elf.
Let's go.
Playoff team. Come on. Fourth seed maybe? Or
Njoku's on fire, baby. Njoku's on fire. Let's go, man. Come on.
Gosh.
Cooper Kupp, 25.5 fantasy points. He might be back. I don't know. The connection looks good. Stafford looks good. I mean, if anything, this gives me the confidence to keep him in my lineup because I know where the potential can go.
Yeah, I think you keep him in the lineup. If I'm playing against someone that has Cooper Kupp, I still feel like I have a chance. Like I'm worried.
Like, oh, nice. They're like risking out Kupp there. But if I have Cooper Kupp, I'm like, all right, baby, come on. Let's keep it going.
Yeah.
So yeah,
but it's a great stat
line. How it goes. Yeah, definitely. Another guy here, Joe Mixon, a guy that Wes we talked about. It was like 5 or 6 weeks ago. Maybe it was like 4 weeks ago. I don't know. Maybe it was like 4 weeks ago.
It was in the past.
I was like, we haven't said Joe Mixon's name once this entire season, and now we've talked about him every single Tuesday show since that episode. 21.5 fantasy points. Yeah. 21 carries for 79 yards and a touchdown. 3 catches for 46 receiving yards. 21.5 fantasy points. It was something that we said in the aftermath of the Joe Burrow injury. What's going to happen with Joe Mixon? Joe Mixon's going to benefit. He's going to see more opportunities. 25 opportunities in this game for Joe Mixon. It's good things. Keep rolling them out. And if you held on that long, you're in a good spot. I feel good if I'm a Joe Mixon owner right now.
100%. It's happy to see for people that have Mixon, and it's exactly what you said. This is what it looks like without Burrow. You're going to depend on everybody else, and Mixon's the guy.
Yeah. Garrett Wilson, another guy here, 20.1 fantasy points. Zach Wilson came in. He said, F it. What am I going to do? Get benched again? I'm just going to play like I want to play. I don't know. I'm just going to leave it all out there on the field. 14 targets for Garrett Wilson, 9 for 108, 3 yards on the ground. Fluke.
Yeah, Fluke. That's Fluke.
Yep.
Sorry.
Fluke. Sorry, guys. Odell Beckham Jr., 19.7 fantasy points, 4 catches on 10 targets for 97 yards and a touchdown. OBJ has quietly been really, really solid over the last 6 weeks. I believe 5 out of his last 6 games, he has like 12 or more fantasy points with a little bit of a ceiling around 20. He might be a flex play. He might be a flex play for the playoffs, dude.
It's possible. The 10 targets is really nice. I do know that OBJ kind of came alive with the Rams 2 years ago in the last stretch of the regular season. So it's I'm willing to say for real, but there are a number of players that I would still continue to start my flex over OBJ. But I'm definitely considering him going forward.
Absolutely. And I can agree with that. And it's definitely something that's just worth keeping in mind. 11 or more fantasy points in 4 of his last 5 games. He played his highest snap share that he's played in the last 5 weeks this past weekend. He finishes a wide receiver 8 this week. He's got 3 finishes inside the top 20 in those last 5 games. Interesting play. We'll have to see what happens here. Another guy who's very interesting and someone we got to look at here is Isaiah Likely. 5 catches for 83 yards and a touchdown on 7 targets. Obviously, he's a big play touchdown. I think it was about a 50-yard touchdown. So that obviously helped. But Lamar Jackson likes tight ends, dude. I think this might be a little bit for real. I think Isaiah Likely in the landscape of the tight end position is somebody you need to keep rolling out.
Isaiah Likely could be a starting tight end on a lot of football teams. I think he is very good. And he filled in for Mark Andrews. I believe it was last year when Andrews was hurt. And in the same game that Andrews went down, Likely got a touchdown. He is good. He is legit. And so Isaiah Likely is for real. And this is what I do expect. It's partly why I was a little hesitant on OBJ, because I know what I have with Zay Flowers, and we know how good Likely is. So in my mind, OBJ is still the third option for Lamar Jackson, at least should be, because of how good Likely is. So this is it. I really like Likely. I think if you are struggling in the tight end spot and you have Likely or he's still available, you can start Isaiah Likely for the playoffs and will make championship because of Likely. Not alone, but he will be a big reason why you do make championships should you make it.
Yeah, he'll be a big-time contributor, that's for sure. A few here, Wes, that I'll go through pretty quick because, and you tell me if I'm wrong, to me, these all feel like flukes.
Okay.
Javonte Williams, 18.1. Davis Allen, rookie tight end for the Rams, 15 points. Kyle Pitts, 14.7 points. And Wan'Dale Robinson, 17.5 points. All of those feel like flukes to me. Am I reaching on any of those, or what do you think?
I agree. We've gone back and forth on Javonte Williams so much, so that I understand that people may be obligated to still start him, or they may not have a better option, or whatever the circumstance is. Javonte Williams, I won't be upset if someone's like, well, I'm going to just start Javonte Williams. It's the best I've got. But as far as a frustrating season for fantasy and the ups and downs from Javonte Williams, that is for real. But yeah, it's totally possible that Javonte Williams next week gets 7 points. So yeah, as far as fluke or for real, sure, fluke for all of them.
I mean,
all the ones you just listed.
Yeah, last few I want to talk about here real quick, and I just want to give a special shout out to Jaden Reed with 20.5 fantasy points and his best Alvin Kamara impression on Monday Night Football. 8 catches for 27 yards. Now, listen, even if he just had receiving work, that's a 10.7 point day. You probably started Jaden Reed in your flex. 10.7, you probably wouldn't be super disappointed on. But this guy's a bit of a gadget. He's a little bit like Debo. He's obviously not as very good run after catch. This game was a surprise win for the Giants. The Packers, it was quite uncharacteristic for them to struggle the way they did. So
yeah,
interesting things there.
both Monday night games.
This could be a one-off case. But he's a bit of a gadget player because he has 4 rushes for 38 yards and a touchdown. He scores on a 15-yard run on a bit of like a little Debo type play, it feels like. And so with Jayden Reed, he's been very good in this role for the last 7 or 8 weeks.
Yeah,
I think this is for real. I think Jayden Reed is a worthy flex player in the fantasy playoffs.
If you were to say Wan'Dale Robinson was for real with that same stat line, I would question you. But Jayden Reed, Packers fans can talk about Jayden Reed. Packers fans know that he's legit. And it's interesting, too, because it's almost like the way the Chiefs have been for a lot of this season is trying to find the true number 2, because Christian Watson was definitely the number 1, or at least poised going into the season as the wide receiver 1. And he missed a few games to start out the season. Romeo Doubs looked good. And then you talked about Wicks. What's his first name?
Yeah, Dontavion Wicks.
Dontavion Wicks. He's been in an uptick too for trending for waiver wires. So people are trying to find that other Packers wide receiver. Jayden Reed put his name in the hat, and when you have rushing upside too, I'm very intrigued. So I will buy it. I won't start him. I'm not going to start him in the playoffs, but I will pick him up if he's available. I don't know if he is, but I'm going to say for real with you on this.
Yeah, if he's out there, he's definitely worth grabbing, and we're keeping an eye on for sure. Last couple. Tajay Spears, 17.2 fantasy points, does pretty much nothing on the ground, but it was a great PPR asset for fantasy football on Monday night.
A lot of good third down conversions too.
Yeah. We love Tajay Spears, Wes. We've talked about him frequently on the show. He's a guy that we're excited about. If Derrick Henry's potentially not there next year, he's got a really good opportunity coming for himself. I'm not sold. I'm not ready to start Tajay Spears in the fantasy playoffs off this performance, but it was great. It was great to see the usage be where it was, and him be kind of an Austin Eckler type player, it seems like, and it feels like he has the potential to be. So more of a thing to keep in mind, I think, for next season, not so much immediately this season impact for me with Tajay Spears off this performance.
That's possible. I think it is also possible that he is involved enough in the PPR game to be a legitimate 15-point projection or 15-point hopeful for people, which should be fine for a flex option. But his snap count is also something to take note of because he is seeing a lot. It was 67%, not from this Monday night game against the Dolphins, but the week before. So when you're on the field that much, I mean, it's almost in the way that speaking of Dolphins, the way they use Achane and Mostert. It's like they get in the goal line area, it's Mostert because he's the power back. He's also very fast too. But when they're wanting to throw the ball, yes, they'll throw it to Mostert. Yes, they'll throw it to Derrick Henry. And Derrick Henry actually had a very impressive leaping catch on the sideline by himself. But it was like he's got ups. Tajay Spears seems to be the PPR back. So I am more inclined to start Tajay Spears than you probably are. But I'm not saying roll him out. He's a playoff hero. But I think coming off a win off of a playoff team like the Dolphins, there's a chance they're like, this is the trio. This is the trio. Yeah. We've got Will Levis, Tajay Spears, and DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, which leads us to DeAndre Hopkins to close out the good side of Fluke for real. DeAndre Hopkins with 25.4 fantasy points, 7 catches for 144 yards and a touchdown. Another 12-target game, Wes. Early in the season, he had a game against the Colts, and he had 12 targets with Ryan Tannehill, and we said he's not going to have 12 targets again in a single game. And since Will Levis has come in, I believe this is his second or third game with 12 targets. D-Hop's a legit fantasy play down the stretch here. If they are going to be trying to come back in games, he's legit. And we saw it firsthand against our Dolphins, against a good defense, that they were running some high tempo. Levis was locked in on Hopkins, and 25.4 points shows for it. I think this is somebody that you can trust in your lineup in the fantasy playoffs. And it feels like, again, Ezekiel Elliott and DeAndre Hopkins, it feels like we're back in 2016 with some of these guys who can help us in the fantasy stretch here. So, sad as a Dolphins fan.
Hopkins must be in your lineup. That's what I'll say. After watching Monday night against the Dolphins, DeAndre Hopkins must be in your fantasy lineups. If you want to have a shot to make championships, I think Hopkins is your answer. Legitimately. Dolphins cornerbacks are no joke. I mean, what was essentially looked like a Hail Mary in the first half, I have no idea how he caught that behind Xavier Howard. That was insane. Some great toe touch catches on the sideline. He looks vintage Houston Texans DeAndre Hopkins from Monday night. I think people are going to win because of Hopkins. That's what it feels like. I don't think this is a fluke. I think this is for real, and I think this is scary to go up against Hopkins.
100%. This is for real. You can roll out DeAndre Hopkins with confidence. He will be a fantasy football hero for the playoffs this year. He will help bring people championships. He is looking fantastic, and Will Levis is looking for him often. So good things there on the good side of Fluke or for real. And out to the bad side, Patrick Mahomes. Rumor has it he's still complaining about that offsides call on Kadarius Toney.
I'm just upset about the greatness for Travis Kelce.
It's going to
feels like his Hall of Fame career.
It's going to affect his playoff and Hall of Fame legacy.
Were they going to show us real? He's going to not show that great play. That's part of his greatness.
Because of a penalty? Really? A penalty? A play that isn't allowed to happen? And we're going to stop a play because a thing that isn't allowed to happen happened? I'm Patrick Mahomes. That's my auto. You've seen the commercial.
I was going to say that. Mahomes and my auto.
It's going to affect my autos. It's going to affect my autos Hall of Fame legacy.
Jake from State Farm would never call that penalty.
Okay. Sorry. Listen, thank you.
I'm going to pull up Mahomes' game log here because it's not been good. I'll say this. 15.6 points is for real with Patrick Mahomes. I was 1 year early on doubting him.
You were.
I was 1 year early. 2022, I was like, he's like going to be like QB8. Like he can't do what he did with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce in this offense. He's not going to be able to do it without him. Well, he's currently the QB8, and I was 1 year early. This is his game log going back to week 8. 15, and this is 6-point passing touchdowns. This is probably even better than your here. I actually have him. I'm going to do this because I have him in a league where it is not 6-point passing touchdown, and I want to just get this fully correct here.
Please do.
In standard 4-point passing touchdown, week 8. Sorry, I'll go back. I'll start from now. 14.6, 14, 20.8, 17.8, 15.8, 7.6, 35, 18, 19, 15, 26, 22, 20. We got. We had the 3 games to start. They were really good. And then we had a handful of down games. We had 3 down games. And then we had the Chargers game with 35 points. And we were like, nah, he's got to be in the lineup. You can't take him out. 7.6, 15.8, 17.8, 20.8, 14, 14.6. I have Patrick Mahomes in a dynasty league. I'm in the playoffs in round 1. I do not have a round 1 bye. I'm starting Sam Howell over Patrick Mahomes in the fantasy football playoffs. I cannot trust Patrick Mahomes to be in my lineup. I can't do it. I know he's Mahomes. I get it. The track record says it. It's been 7 games of garbage. It's been 7 games of garbage from Patrick Mahomes for fantasy football. I can't trust him in my lineup for the fantasy playoffs. There's zero way I can trust him in my lineup. There are some leagues where I have to. And I'm scared. Like, it does not look good. I'm starting Sam Howell over Patrick Mahomes in round 1 of the fantasy playoffs. This sucks. He's been so bad this year for fantasy. It's been so bad. This is for real. 15.6 is for real. The offense is not scoring points like they have in the past. They're scoring a full touchdown less per game this season than they did last year. And what happened? They lost Juju Smith-Schuster. Is Juju Smith-Schuster that good? Juju for MVP, I guess. Confirmed. This is terrible from Mahomes for fantasy football. A guy we all drafted in the second round. We drafted him in the second round of the fantasy drafts this season. And he's averaging 15 fantasy points over the last 2 months. He's been terrible. You cannot roll out Patrick Mahomes for the fantasy football playoffs. He has to be benched.
That was the point I was going to make that you just touched on. We drafted him in the second round. It was second round. When you're drafting a quarterback that early, and you and I have always been people that have said just wait to the end, because at the end, in the 9th and 10th round, there was Tua and Kirk Cousins for several weeks, and apparently Sam Howell just waiting with open arms. Brock Purdy was there. Jordan Love was there. Quarterbacks get you 20 points almost every week. When you're drafting a quarterback in the second round, you have to expect them to get 30 points. That's the thing. It's not because he's just a very good football player. In fantasy, you want 30 points. That's why at the same time, people were drafting Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen. And I know Hurts just had his worst ever game in fantasy, but Hurts has been amazing all year. And Josh Allen is the number 1 scoring fantasy player this season. Mahomes is not just disappointing for his standards, but disappointing as a second-round pick. It just feels like a second-round bust because of where his ADP is. So
yeah,
I'll double down with you. Don't start Patrick Mahomes because of everything you just said. There's nothing else to add to it. You can't start Mahomes, and I'm just going to keep getting upset. There's nothing else to add, but it's so frustrating. I just want to add. You remember weeks ago during the Thursday night game, we were doing a must starts, risky starts, don't starts. It was the Chiefs, not the Thursday to open the season against the Lions, but another one. You said you must start Patrick Mahomes. Hear me out, because it's Mahomes, but there was already a conversation. Do you remember this? You had to say,
"Oh yeah,
you should still start Mahomes," because it was already conversation 6 weeks into the season. Hey, you just keep going on Mahomes because of Mahomes. I know it's not been great, but genuinely, I need to tell people to start Mahomes. Now, here we are telling people with confidence to bench Patrick Mahomes. What a season.
Yeah. He has one top 10 weekly finish in the last 6 weeks.
Disgusting.
He has 5 on the year in 13 games. It's been terrible. It's been absolutely terrible. Retire.
Gross.
Just retire. That's pretty much where we should go.
Yeah.
You get the bag anyways, so there you go. You get the Omaha Productions. Omaha! You got the Omaha Productions deal for the quarterback series, so there you go. Last ones here we'll go through pretty quick. Zach Moss, 9.6 points. This has been a bit of a bummer. I figured he was going to be a bit of a league winner coming down the stretch, and because of the running back landscape, I think you kind of still have to start him. I'm not sure what the Colts' schedule is going forward, but probably a matchup-based play, but because of the volume he gets, he's still got 19 opportunities in this game. It's just not been great. Hopefully he can bounce back a little bit, but unless you're desperate, probably sit him for round 1 of the playoffs. That's what I'll say.
Steelers next week. Falcons the week after. Falcons have a great rush defense. They've allowed the second fewest points to running backs.
Yep.
And then championship weekend is against the Raiders. So
maybe some spot starts if he's on your team and you get to a point where maybe you're comparing matchups, maybe he's in consideration. But this has been a bummer for Zach Moss.
I'll say for real. I'll say for real though.
Yeah, this feels for real. Yeah, I mean, even with the bad performances, I believe he's still been like the 8 or 9, 10 points, something like that. It's been bad. It's been a real bad performance the past couple of weeks. Gus Edwards, 1.5 points. This is what happens when he doesn't score touchdowns. This is for real.
Hey,
6 carries for 15
like
yards.
You said that or something.
Yeah, almost like it. There you go. Josh Dobbs. Oh, what a terrible game. What a historically terrible game for the Minnesota Vikings and Las Vegas Raiders on Sunday. But 4.6 fantasy points for Josh Dobbs. 10 for 23, 63 yards, and 21 rushing yards. And then he got benched in the fourth quarter for Nick Mullins. So, assuming he maybe plays next week, this is for real and don't play him. So that's just the warning shot there. Don't roll him out. But this is for real. This sucks. I heard a comparison, people saying that, the carriage turned into a pumpkin. The Cinderella story ran out. Like it was there and then it's gone. One day and then the other. Disappointing stuff. DeAndre Swift, 3.9 fantasy points. He is a guy that was helping people get to winning records in leagues this season, and this is his third straight week under 10 fantasy points. Nothing in the PPR game against the Cowboys on Sunday night. This is for real. I don't know if I feel confident starting DeAndre Swift after 3 straight weeks under 10 points. I mean, I know he helped you get here, but I think you may have to pivot if you have another option.
I don't know how many other options are better than DeAndre Swift on a person's team. That's the only reason that I will just have to say Fluke, almost as if like it doesn't matter if it's Fluke or for real, because how many people have like an elite running back on their bench and they've been rolling out DeAndre Swift. Like, oh, sure, I'm torn between DeAndre Swift and Austin Eckler and Derrick Henry. I know someone that has that as their team, and they have to make the decision every week.
Is it you?
No, it's not me. It's not me.
Oh, okay. Got it.
But she just made playoffs, barely.
Right.
But that's the kind of situation where it's like, unless you happen to have 2 third round or better running backs on your team from fantasy ADP, I think you just stick with it.
I'm going to give you 2 players. I want to ask you if you play DeAndre Swift or this player.
Okay.
Before we move on. Would you play DeAndre Swift or Jerome Ford this week against the Bears?
Swift.
Okay. Would you play Jerome Ford or Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who just had 15 opportunities for the Kansas City Chiefs?
Jerome Ford
if
or
Isaiah Pacheco, for DeAndre Swift or Clyde Edwards-Helaire, if Isaiah Pacheco is out again?
Swift. Still.
Okay. So that's where we're at. A little status check there, in case those are 2 players potentially who could be on a bench that people could be thinking, is this a better play? Stick with Swift there. We'll see how it goes.
I'd still start Swift over Jerick McKinnon, even though McKinnon got a touchdown. Just
it felt weird that McKinnon got the goal line rushing touchdown, right?
That was odd.
It felt so backwards. I was like, what just happened there? I saw it and I was like, CEH gets in the end zone. Good spot start for the week. And then it was like, oh, why does that guy look thinner? What's happening here? Anyway, Calvin Ridley, 13 targets. 9.3 isn't great, but you can't ignore 13. You got to keep rolling them out. No Christian Kirk on 13 targets. You got to keep rolling with him. Devon Achane, 12.1, down game. He is in my lineup every single week, no matter what. You have to keep playing him. Maybe this is the beginning of a Patrick Mahomes situation where, like, you got to play him. Because it's like, you're right. Raheem Mostert does get, like, the inside the 10-yard line carries, and Devon Achane does need to, like, kind of break a long one to be able to, like, have that kind of relevance. I mean, obviously against the Washington Commanders, he had a couple touchdowns inside the 10-yard line. That was kind of like after the fact of Raheem Mostert being out, stuff like that. But I don't know. This will be interesting to monitor. I want to come back to this episode if we get to the end of the year and it was like, yeah, he didn't score more than 14 points the rest of the season. Wow, it's just like Mahomes. All right, cool. There we go. Anyway, we'll see what happens there. But keep rolling out Devon Achane. Kenneth Walker the third, 9.4 fantasy points. I think it's a tough 49ers defense. I think the carry count wasn't great. They were throwing the ball a lot. That's kind of how you can win against the 49ers. So I think, again, with the running back landscape here, if we're starting DeAndre Swift, I think you got to keep starting Kenneth Walker the third too, just with that upside.
I agree. So it just may not be league winning anymore.
Yeah.
I think Charbonnet is starting to make a splash.
Definitely. He definitely is. Yeah. It's something worth noting, but I think you keep KW3 in the lineup. Last one here is Jordan Addison, 4.7. For real. So sad, especially if Nick Mullins is playing quarterback with Justin Jefferson back. Just 3 targets in this game. In a game where you're desperately prying for offense, for some sort of movement for your offense, where Justin Jefferson isn't playing because he gets hurt early in the game. And you're a hot first-round rookie wide receiver, and you have 3 targets. That sucks. That's real bad. That's real bad. I am not excited about playing Jordan Addison. And here's the thing, really. I think Jordan Addison is a drop candidate. I know that sounds crazy, but like, are you starting Jordan Addison any of the next 3 weeks in your lineup?
No.
If it's Nick
Mullins, he goes on your bench,
and Justin Jefferson comes back, right? He goes on your bench. So like, if you're in need of like if you want to like plan ahead, if you're in the league that still plays with defenses and you want to plan ahead for like a defensive matchup, I think you drop Jordan Addison for real. I think it's legit. I think it's a legitimate option for you. It's disappointing because I have such high hopes, but
on your starting roster and depending on the depth of your wide receivers, like if you only have 4 wide receivers and should one of them be hurt, you can keep Jordan Addison. But yes, it's a lot to give up Jordan Addison, but you're not going to start him, so I guess you might as well.
Yeah, no, you're not.
Terrible.
It's disappointing, yeah, for sure. I mean, I'll just give an example. I did this with I'm in a league where I needed some more running back depth. After Thursday night's game, when it was announced that Pacheco was going to be out, I dropped Deontay Johnson to pick up Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Because it's a similar situation. It's like, I'm not starting Deontay Johnson any of the 3 weeks. We talked about it, Wes. So you convinced me. You were like, you didn't tell me drop Deontay Johnson, but it's just like, I have really good receivers in that league. So that's also a point of like, that's where I kind of am at. But I'm not going to start Deontay Johnson. So if you're in a situation where like you really think there's somebody on the waiver wire who can help you more than Jordan Addison, I'm not scared to drop him, dude. If I'm not feeling confident about him in the playoffs with Nick Mullins, that's just kind of where I'm at